Hey everybody, lesson 4 here for chapter 4, and what we're taking a look at today is a little bit of a different perspective, right? We spent the last 3 lessons talking about immigrants coming to our big cities, what their lives were like in those big cities, some of the ideas that were floating around America during the Gilded Age. What we want to do is take a look here today at rural America, life outside the cities and suburbs. We want to see what was different for the farmers and the people living in rural America. So what we want to start out with here is helping you realize the problems farmers had after the Civil War, which is right at the beginning of the Gilded Age, like right at that 1870 mark. And the reality here is that right after the Civil War is over, there is a ton of money that's out in the economy because our government had paid for so many supplies. But all of the factories that were out there were busy making war stuff, but we're not at war anymore. So Americans have all of this money, but nothing to buy with it. So it's essentially worthless. That is a really important term we're going to talk about a lot. It's called inflation, and it's a decline in the value of money. It means that money is worth less. The value of money has declined. It's worth less. Its value has fallen. And when money is worth less, that means people don't want it because it's not worth as much. So if people are going to offer you money to buy something, since the money isn't worth anything, I need a lot of it in order to make any advancement. So with money being worth less, you have to give people more to buy things. That means prices will rise. I know that doesn't seem initially like it'd make sense, but the goal is to realize that when something is worth a lot, very valuable, there usually isn't a lot of it around. Like diamonds, right? There's not a lot of it around. If diamonds fell like rain, they wouldn't be worth anything because they'd be everywhere. So if I was going to give you a diamond for something and diamonds fell like rain, that would be worth like nothing. So we have to just kind of remember that issue of inflation, decrease in the value of money. That's one of the big problems farmers have, because in order for their crops to be worth anything, people got to pay a ton of money. It's hard for them to do anything with that. So the government is going to try and do some things to try and make lives better for farmers. And the president at the time, Benjamin Harrison, he stops printing money so that there's less of it around. He pays off our debts so we don't have as much of it by paying off the bills. But the problem is now he's gone the other way. Now, all of a sudden, here we are in 1870, it's the second industrial revolution. People are making all of these things in the factories, but now we don't have enough money to buy it. And what happens with that is called deflation. That's an increase in the value of money and a decrease in prices. Think about it like this. If money is harder to get, it's worth more, right? Because it's harder to get. Like diamonds today, harder to get, they're worth more money. So in order to convince me to spend what money I have on your product, you're going to lower the price. So I choose you and not the other person that's selling the product for more money, right? So just kind of imagine that if you have 2 farmers selling you an apple, and money is really valuable, so there's not a lot of it, so you're trying to get the best deal. The farmer that lowers their price the most, that's the farmer you're going to buy the apple from. Well, this means that life is going to be really hard for farmers because they're producing more than ever before, just as the value of the dollar is rising. So they're going to make less and less profit because they're lowering their prices to try and get some of that money from the people that are willing to buy it, right? So these economic crises, the fact that first we had inflation where money was worthless, so prices were really high, but money wasn't worth anything, so it didn't matter even if you bought something. And then we had the flip side. We have deflation where money is worth a ton because there's not a lot of it and prices are going down. This makes life really, really hard for farmers after the Civil War. And as a result, they embrace a new idea that's called populism. And the concept here is that it starts among farmers, and it's to represent their needs. It's designed to find a way to help poor, especially poor rural Americans. One of the ways they do that is by wanting a new kind of tax. And so what they do is they say, well, we're going to create our own political party. We're going to call it the People's Party. And this political party is going to ask for a graduated income tax. And the idea there is the more money you make every year, the more you pay in taxes. This means, of course, right, that farmers who aren't making much at all because the value of the dollar is so high and prices are so low, this means that farmers wouldn't pay a lot in taxes. It also means that they would push for things like 8-hour work days for factory workers to try and get factory workers to support the People's Party. They want to restrict immigrants so that they can't take the jobs of native-born Americans and work for less and drive down wages. And they even nominate their own president, a guy named James Weaver. He's going to lose, mind you, but the whole point here is that they are going to try and run their own presidential candidate in 1892. And they even try 4 years later. In 1896, they support the Democrat William Jennings Bryan, who is against big business. And the Republicans nominate a guy named William McKinley, and he's more of a moderate Republican. And so the argument there is that we need to get rid of laissez-faire, we need to regulate business to help farmers and to help workers, versus William McKinley that says what we need to do is support big businesses, because if they fail, then the average person is going to lose their job and they're going to go out of business. So you can't vote for the Democrats, you can't vote for the People's Party, because you're going to hurt big business, and that's going to hurt all of the Americans who work there. This is something that is really popular, right? This idea of populism from 1890-ish all the way into the early 1900s, but then it kind of dies out and it doesn't work, it fails. But it's worth noting, and one of the reasons we're studying this is that we have a populist president that has advocated, pushed for a lot of these same similar things in terms of protecting America's workers, with bringing back factory jobs, with making sure that farmers are making more money, stopping immigration, especially illegal immigration. These are really populist ideas. So these ideas that start back then to try and help farmers still around today and still very much relevant.